So it seems that we've got two really quite big unit reveals for Warhammer 40k, new Space Wolf Wolf Scouts, and an updated version of the Tau Stealth battlesuits. Let's take a look at the models and their kit options, and what they might mean for in-game rules. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today we're talking about the big 40k reveals for new updated units for the Space Wolves and Tau, recently revealed by Games Workshop over on Warhammer Community. Games Workshop do seem to have been keeping the Warhammer 40k reveals coming really quite regularly recently. I feel like most of the time they usually try and put their reveals on a Monday, but we've had quite a lot of 40k stuff in rapid succession. First up, a bunch of Ultramarines with Marnius Calgar, then the Crux Terminatus box set and the Ultramarines Combat Patrols. It seems that while they've got busy weeks, they're putting reveals on Fridays as well. We had the Death Corps of Krieg and the Harlequins, and it seems that this Friday we've got the Wolf Scouts and Stealth Suits. These model reveals appear to be the answer for Games Workshop's Kill Team schedule. We've recently just had Kill Team Tomb World come out with the Necron Geomancer and the Deathwatch veterans. We're still currently waiting at the moment for some rules for both of those squads. And then we had the Raptors vs Sisters leak out of order for Kill Team Shadowhunt. That's going to be coming sometime in 2026. If I had to guess by the usual Kill Team schedule, maybe somewhere around sort of April to June-ish. It really wouldn't surprise me too much for them to come out slightly before 11th edition. In the gap, it looks like the mystery release between these two are Space Wolves vs Tau Stealth Suits, and they do fit well with a lore teaser that we had. Games Workshop seem to be quite specifically teasing kill teams in their Crusade books for some reason, just in offhand ways such as World Eaters kill teams operating in one area, or Space Wolves sending in Wolf Scout kill teams to infiltrate ahead of the main force. And funnily enough, it looks like their lore writers are really quite specifically informed to use the word kill team when they actually have a kill team product coming out for them. Wolf Scouts certainly seem like a good option for a kill team, and indeed we have some. As per usual with their Kill Team release cycles, they shall be coming along in Kill Team Dead Silence, one big box set. And at least from their preview today, it doesn't immediately look like they've got any other terrain coming in that one. I'd guess you just play it on the Kill Team Tomb World terrain set. Apparently the story behind this one are that the Tau Empire are going in to try and recover some Necron technology to take it back to the Empire and see if they can pick it apart and advance their technology in some way. But their presence when investigating the Tomb World was noticed by the Space Wolves, who feel that allowing Tau access to Necron technology probably isn't in the Imperium's long-term best interest. In the box set, it looks like there's a Wolf Scout squad and a Stealth Suit squad, though for some reason Games Workshop seem to have made it super unclear as to how many models you actually get on both sides. I really don't know why they've decided to do that. There's a good chance that you might well get 10 of each of the operatives, though it could be fewer. The launch box will likely be the only way to get these models for a fair while. Games Workshop's usual practice with the Kill Team launch boxes is to make far too few of them so they sell out instantly, so most people around the world can't get the miniatures for another 3 or 4 months or so. As usual with these previews, there's no proper release date given, merely pretty soon. If I'd had to guess, I'd say that's probably going to be this side of Christmas, maybe around December time if I'd had to estimate it. We have just had the Kill Team Tomb World box set, so I'd imagine it might not be too soon. It's not impossible it could be after though. I guess there's some hope it might be a little cheaper than some boxes out there if there's no terrain in it, but no guarantees on that front of course. Let's get into the new units though, and we'll start out with the Wolf Scouts. Unlike most chapters out there, the Space Wolves use their veterans as their scouts rather than the new recruits to the chapter, as most of the other chapters seem to do. Instead, the Space Wolves use their new recruits as hot-headed blood claws, charging in berserker style into the enemy. Maybe does make a little bit more lore sense for your more sensitive tactical missions, where the eliteness of the squad is a really big issue, to be handled by the veterans rather than the raw recruits. The Wolf Scouts for the Space Wolves have had miniatures in the past, the ones in the background. They had a datasheet in the Space Wolf Index, but then had it removed in the Space Wolf Codex as the Wolf Scout models weren't on sale anymore, so it seemed likely that alongside a few of the other Space Wolf units, you'd just be using the standard Scout models to represent them now. So it looks like we've now got the new version of them, and I guess it's interesting to see that you can have rules taken away for a unit within one edition, only for them to come back just a few months after the Codex is released. I guess they could have put them in the Codex, but if they did so, it would absolutely give away that there was a unit coming for them, given that these guys have different armour and really quite different gear to their predecessors. Miniatures wise, as best I can tell, it looks like it's going to be another one of their 5 model dual build sets, though kind of frustratingly their article has been super unhelpful with that, talking about the models and the specialists and giving us a whole bunch of painted up pictures, but just not actually telling us how many there's going to be in a box set. I feel like if you had a look through the article and just took a look at their painted up models, you might be forgiven for thinking there's probably going to be 7 models plus a wolf in the box, but for their posts on social media they've put 5 with the wolf, and I guess for that reason it's probably going to be another one similar to the Deathwatch, where you basically have 5 models and then they can be assembled 2 different ways. It looks like for their options in the box set, there's one for a junior rune priest Skald, a plasma gun and a plasma pistol armed ones, similar to the previous Wolf Scouts could get, I believe a haywire mine similar to the Incursors, plus a power sword for the pack leader. The biggest and perhaps most surprising change for them, though, is that they appear to be in Phobos armor as opposed to in the Scout Carapace armor. I guess it makes sense in the more modern Primaris era that you'd be able to have some slightly stealthier armor without compromising on protection now. This still, I guess, changes the theme of the unit just a little bit. It looks like their pattern of Phobos armor doesn't have the sort of one shoulder pad sort of affair going on, and they don't seem to have any helms. The Space Wolf models in general, with their feeling as lots of mini-heroes, often don't tend to go for the helmeted version if they have one. Overall, they look quite fun. They've got a whole bunch of Space Wolf totems, little trinkets, and wolf talismans of one sort or another. I feel like they've initially been quite well received. They seem to be painted up with a mix of great companies working together. Before we move on to look through these specific models one by one, I'll just give a quick shout out to today's video sponsoring Great Art Studio, a 3D printed parts maker with their Primal Hounds range, who can add some aesthetic upgrades to your Space Vikings out there, and might be able to add a bit of theme to the more stock Primaris models that you get in the range that might be fighting alongside the cool themed ones. They both sell their 3D printed STLs, and they also have some print on demand ones via Only Games linked below. For their options, they have a whole bunch of bits packs, often around £5 or $6 or so for STLs, or £7 or $10 to print on demand. And in their range they have a whole bunch of fun stuff, a whole bunch of helms including some Asgardian style ones, and some nice horned battle helmets too. They have some themed backpacks. I was particularly quite impressed with their ancient armour for upgrading some Redemptors. They've got a whole bunch of other stuff, hammer and shield bits, some fancy runic shield designs and two-handed weapons, plus other bits from more unusual things like jetpacks or capes. As well as having the individual things separately, they also have a great big everything pack. All the bits are around $80 or so. In any case, thanks to them for sponsoring this one. You can find them linked in the video description. Getting back to the model reveals for the squad though, first up we have a pack leader and a pet Fenrisian wolf. It looks like the pack leader's armed with a power sword here, so a little bit of fighty melee quality leading the squad. With them being kind of vague about the kit, we don't know whether or not he might have some other options. I guess whether or not he has a power fist or thunderhammer choice could be quite a big deal, though it seems far from guarantees. Seems that for each squad of 5 they'll also have a Fenrisian wolf in the squad as well. That could be kind of important for making charge distances shorter. It's possible he might be able to move 10 inches and then range out in front of the squad with that really quite big base and get them into their prey a lot easier. It at least appears like he might have some comms equipment there, or what appears to be a frost knife and heavy bolt pistol. Then there's a frost eye. He's got a bolt carbine. I think that might be an instigator bolt carbine similar to what the eliminators have. No guarantees that it get the same special rules, but if it did so, it could allow the squad a move shoot move, which would be really quite big for utility purposes. Then there's a gunner armed with a plasma gun here. It looks like it is just a standard plasma gun and not a big hefty plasma incinerator. So interesting to see some Primaris using a bit more standard tech. I'm going to guess there might be the option for something like a melter gun to swap out for it, though no guarantees of course. Then there's a Trap Master who appears to have a haywire mine kind of similar to the Incursors. That's likely going to be relevant for 40k purposes and could deal out a good amount of mortal wounds to enemies getting close to them, particularly to vehicles. Then we've got a Rune Priest Skjold. Interesting to have a mini psyker within the unit. In the flavour text they said that they could use his powers to shroud the squad, so maybe some sort of stealth or cover special rule there, and he might be able to do a bit of storm calling to unleash some psychic damage too. And then finally one they've called a Hunter, who appears to be armed with combat knife and plasma pistol, so a little bit more hard-hitting close-range firepower. Here are the painted up variants they've shown to us, all displayed together. As you can see, they've given us 7 different ones, plus the Fenrisian wolf, though it looks like some of them are dual builds of each other. It looks like the Frost Eye has the same legs and rocky outcrop bit as the pack leader, so that might have implications for the datasheets in that you might not be able to take the Frost Eye and that bolt carbine unless you have a 10-strong squad. I feel like more typically when they tend to show them off with the actual product picture, it's often these social media ones like this that tends to give the representation of what they're actually going to sell. And this one's pictured with 5 guys alongside a Fenrisian wolf. And at first guess for this, I suppose you're probably going to get 5 of these, and the other set will be the dual build version, some of which we haven't seen, probably with more basic gear. Kind of interesting that the Frost Eye's pictured here but the pack leader isn't. With their previous war gear, they were basically like scouts but a bit more flexible, having options for things like melter guns and plasma guns plus some plasma pistols. I'm guessing more fancy equipment on the sergeant that was quite freeform to be what you could take, with thunderhammers and lightning claws. They're currently not in the Space Wolf Codex anymore though. I'd guess that this new kit would have some pretty major revisions for them. Judging by the kit, if it really is a dual build 5-man squad, it's probably still going to be 5 or 10 of them, and then really quite specifically locked to the war gear that comes in the kit, so it might be a whole load of options depending on what sort of dual build that you take. Seems like you could have a fair bit of interesting close range firepower with some plasma fire. The Instigator bolt carbine seems like an auto include if it does allow you to move shoot move, and it might be well worth it to repel things up close. If it's like the Vespid kill team kit though, some of the options might only be locked to a 10-man squad if you went for a big investment one. Otherwise though, they should be getting a 3+ armor save and 2 wounds, and there's no guarantee they necessarily have the same special rules as the scouts. They might well do with scout and infiltrates, but they could have a different special rule rather than return to reserves. It is also maybe a bit concerning as to whether or not the existence of these might make the Space Wolves lose access to the regular scouts that a lot of Space Wolf players might have got. I guess they don't really use regular scout squads in the lore, unless that's representing a Wolf Scout squad in the Carapace armor. Overall though, feels like some pretty fun models and another good addition to the Space Wolf range they've developed over this year. It feels like initial reactions to these have been at least fairly positive. That's only half the story from the kill team box though, as otherwise we have some stealth suits. These guys basically pilot small and sophisticated Tau battle suits, and the battle suits have cloaking technology on it, so you can't really see them with the naked eye, as their name might suggest, allowing them to infiltrate ahead of the force, take down enemies from unexpected angles where they can't even see their foes. They typically fight with burst cannons or fusion blasters, marking targets for other assets, and potentially deploying homing beacons for crisis suits to drop in next to. They've been rather integral to the Tau army recently, given that Games Workshop has sort of made their firepower balanced around them, giving really quite big buffs like reroll 1s to hit and wounds. It seems like Games Workshop's gone the way of upgrading their technology once again. Originally we had the metal XV-15 stealth suits, perhaps closer in appearance to Fire Warrior armor than really big battle suits. Then they got upgraded to the XV-25 with the chunky wraparound carapace body sort of thing, and now apparently the latest mark of Tau armor design is the XV-26, which at first glance feels like a bit of a fusion between the two. Interesting to see another progression of Tau technology here. They don't really feel so enormously different that you couldn't just run the XV-25s as them, maybe with a little bit of conversion for some slightly altered war gear bits. They're not quite as big and bulky and enclosed as the XV-25 ones were. They'll still have some pretty similar theming and have some things that look resembling the Ghost Kill. Again, as per Games Workshop's social media post for this one, it appears that it could well be a 5 model unit, and again Games Workshop have perhaps made it a bit unclear given that they haven't said how many are in the box, and given us the preview of 6 different models, though one of which is definitely a dual build. As well as the 5 major models though, there's also 2 drones and 1 homing beacon, so I guess there'd be those per number of 5 of them. Seems like for their weapons, their primary armament are still the burst cannons. It looks like they get 2 fusion blasters, presumably per squad of 5, and then several kill team specialist options like the Wolf Scouts, some of which might or might not get Warhammer 40k rules support. Between all this, it looks like Tau Emperor have done rather well out of the kill team releases, having an upgrade sprue for Pathfinders, then both Kroot and Vespid kill teams, and now these guys. Going through the miniatures one by one, first up we have the Shardsphere squad leader. He appears to have his bonding knife on his hip there, gesturing out to direct the squad's firepower perhaps. He's armed with a burst cannon, and here's a couple of the drones they can field as well, a marker drone and a gun drone. No idea whether or not they can build some different options or not. It seems that these ones have taken off their aerial that most of the other drones have. I don't know if that's for better stealthiness. The paint scheme's rather interesting for them as well. These ones are really quite a lot more scratched and weathered compared with some of the more normally clean Tau. Then for the squad members, on the left we have a fairly standard guy with a burst cannon. It seems likely that most of them will be able to be built up as the standard models if you want to. Then we've got some of the kill team designated specialist ones. There's one called a neutralizer who I believe has jamming equipment. Some jammer things have prevented close range deep strike previously, though whether or not just one model within the kit being able to do that will get rule support in 40k is a bit less clear. Then we've got one called a designator who's got a marker light on his back. Seems like that could be easy enough to represent a marker light in 40k, though if you've got a drone that the sergeant will be equipped with essentially, then it might be a bit redundant. I don't know if maybe that will play in with their boosted marking rule that they have currently with the reroll 1s to hit and wounds. Then they've got a Liberator who appears to have a demo charge and I believe some EMP grenades maybe. He's also another one with a fusion blaster as well, so really quite good for taking down enemy tanks. And then finally there's one called a Lodestar who seems to be deploying a homing beacon. He's got one in his left hand there, and you've also got one that you can build as a model set up on its own base. Currently their homing beacon rule can allow you a free rapid ingress for a crisis suit nearby. Here's a picture of the variants together. I've gone for 5 of them given that that's what they've promoted on their social media. Overall I feel like they've got quite a good vibe for them, and definitely clearly look like stealth suits as you'd imagine them for 40k but updated. I feel like they're quite a nice update on the previous XV-25 kit. That one was one of the oldest in the Tau range at this point. Then here are their pictures they've uploaded to social media, which again display the 5 models plus the auxiliary drones and the homing beacon alongside. And if they are essentially in kits of 5 or 10, that could have some rules implications, as currently you can only field them in 3s or 6s. It might mean that a minimum size squad costs a bit more, which might not necessarily be the best thing ever for their skirmishing and support style role. It hasn't stopped things like the Raveners still being good though for the Tyranids. For their current rules, the Tau Empire army has been a little bit weirdly dependent on them, 80 points for a squad of 3 and 120 for a squad of 6, so discounted as you only get the 1 copy of their special rule, and their 2 wound battlesuits with a 3+ save, fighting with burst cannons and fusion blasters. Forward Observers allows them to mark a unit, and he gets to reroll all hits and wounds of 1 against that. It's potentially really quite powerful when you can now basically guide half a Tau army with that buff. Since the points increase though, and not needing quite so many squads to mark, they haven't been spammed out in 3 sets of 3 as they often were before quite so regularly. Then they've got some other supporting rules. They get a marker light to the homing beacon for the rapid ingress. I think it's just the one gets the battlesuit support system. You can shoot them directly without any sort of lone operative style protection, but they do get stealth for making them a little bit harder to take down. Feels like besides any changes to the squad numbers, I guess the main changes to them might be to represent the demo charge guy, unless he's literally going to represent grenades for the unit perhaps, they might just get that keyword. One of the one might be technically equipped with a marker light, and perhaps the jammer would have some sort of deny deep strike special rule. I guess they will get a rewritten datasheet to a greater or lesser extent, though whether it makes an enormous change to their battlefield role might be a bit less clear. In any case, let me know what you think of the new Wolf Scouts and new stealth suits. What do you make of them, and would you be tempted to pick up one unit or the other? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and any other fun details that I might have missed. As mentioned, a big thank you to Great Eye Studio and their Primal Hounds for sponsoring the video. Feel free to check out their fun wolfy designs linked down in the video description. They've got plenty of fun Space Viking style bits packs upgrades, available as STLs to 3D print, and they do have some print on demand options too. I'll leave that there for now though. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I'll certainly keep the regular 40k videos coming, with new ones out just about every day. If you've been enjoying the videos on the channel and you'd like to help support, Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description below. Channel patrons get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link's down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.